Hello, everyone. Welcome to WashU's Liberal Arts Theme Week. We're so glad to have you joining us today. We'll get started very soon here. We're just going to allow enough time for everyone to get in the virtual space and we'll get started. We're so happy to have you. Hello, hello. Welcome. Awesome. All right. It looks like we're almost there and have everyone stabilized. So we're so excited to have you all here for our Liberal Arts Theme Week. We'll give it a few more moments. Awesome. This is going to be such a lovely group. I am so excited. All right. I think we have just about stabilized our count. Looks like there may be just a few more folks trying to get in, but we're super excited to have everyone here. Thank you so much for your patience as we go ahead and get started. All right. So again, thank you so much to everyone for being here. You are joining us for WashU's Liberal Arts Theme Week. And so we're excited. We hope that you have enjoyed all of the many ways and opportunities that you've been able to engage with our community this week, and that it's been very enlightening and informative. You are certainly in for a treat today for the student panel. Before we get into the student panel, we definitely want to take the time to acknowledge the land at which our community sits on. So at this time, I would like to start by acknowledging the indigenous culture of Missouri. Washington University and the city of St. Louis are located on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Osage Nation, Missouri and Illini Confederacy. We honor them as we live, work, and study. My name is Valencia, and I am the Senior Associate Director of Admissions, and I am lucky enough to be joined by Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dean Romney, and a few of our wonderful current students and alumni. And so you are certainly in for a treat, as I mentioned earlier today. They are here and willing and ready and excited to share their experiences with you and to answer all of the many questions that you all may have. This is our final session for Liberal Arts Theme Week, and so we hope that you have been able to tune into other sessions that we've hosted this week. However, if you have not been able to do so, no worry, many of them will be recorded and you'll have an opportunity to revisit those recordings at a later date. As a reminder, this is an opportunity to be engaging. We want this to be a conversation. That's why we are here. We're excited to speak with you. We do kindly ask that you use the question and answer button located at the bottom of the screen to submit any of the questions that you may have. And we will then direct them either to Dean Romney or to one of our student panelists. So with that in mind, I'd like to take the time to introduce Dean Romney, who will be moderating today's panel today. And Dean Romney, please feel free to share a few more words about yourself before you introduce the students.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much, Valencia. As Valencia said, I am Jennifer Romney. I'm an associate dean in the College of Arts and Sciences. I've been at WashU in the dean's office for 20 years now. But before that, I actually grew up in St. Louis, and I am an alumna myself. Got my doctorate in early American literature at WashU, and completely fell in love with the place, and was lucky enough to never leave. In the College of Arts and Sciences, the bulk of the work that I do is working one-on-one with individual students. I get a cohort of new students every summer, and I work with them as a four-year advisor through their 4 years. We just yesterday actually finished registering our brand new first year students who will be joining us in August. And so it was really great to be able to begin to have those conversations with them and get to know, who they are and who they want to become, and that sort of process of discovery, which is really, really the hallmark of a liberal arts education. And so I do want to, I think there are a lot of, people and administrators who have been talking to you, but I think it's really best to hear about the experiences of the students firsthand. And so I'd love it if our student panelists can go around and tell us who you are and what you study, where you're from, what you're doing this summer, that kind of thing. And I'll just call on you to make sure that we don't miss anybody. Order on the screen, which is Stephen first. Stephen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Dean Romney. My name is Stephen Kish. I use he, him pronouns, and I graduated this past May. So I'm a recent alum of WashU. I know, surprising. Graduated in the class of 2021. I majored in economics in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I had a second major in finance from the Olin Business School, and then also actually a political science minor in arts and sciences. So this summer, I'm coaching a swim team, a rec summer swim team for any swimmers out there before I move to Chicago in August.
Very nice. Jasmine.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I'm also a recent WashU alum, part of the class of 2021. I'm from Troy, Michigan. I majored in psychology and I minored in writing and music. And this summer, I'm actually an undergraduate admissions intern and I'm actively job seeking, so.
Thanks. Tina.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I am a rising junior, majoring in global health and minoring psychology on the occupational therapy track. And this summer, just like Jasmine, I am also interning at the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, and I'm also working at the Rec Center.
And hopefully you have some spare time to get some sleep done and all of that as well. Ria.
Hi, I'm Ria. I use she, her pronouns. I also graduated in 2021. I studied neuroscience and then I minored in English literature. I just moved to New York City and I'm a medical assistant at this dermatology practice behind me. So yeah, I don't know if I mentioned I'm from Boston, but I'm from Boston.
All right, thanks guys. So I would love it if you would, WashU has this semi-official motto, especially in the College of Arts and Sciences. Our late Dean Jim McLeod said that in arts and sciences, every student would be known by name and story. And so now we've got your names, and I'm interested in learning more about your stories, and especially just sort of, even with this group of 4, we have, I think, 8 different departments, even 9 different departments. I did lose count there for a minute. My degrees are in literature, as I said, not mathematics. And so I'm curious to know how it is that you discovered what it is that you actually wanted to study in arts and sciences. Again, this we have dozens of departments and programs with different kinds of combinations that students can come with, and I'm always really keen to hear about how it is that you guys learned what you love. Yeah, so whoever wants to jump in first can, otherwise I'll call on.
I can start. I think there's a lot of pressure at the time where you all are to think about career and something that's way ahead of you, but I think it's really valuable to lean into what you've enjoyed so far and think about high school and what classes really stuck out to you. What studying for what tests made you feel not as stressed, but more excited and interested, what felt natural and drew you, and then to start sort of exploring there. So for me, that was somewhere in biology. So I started there, and then I ended up concentrating in neuroscience just through taking classes and sort of reflecting on what units interested me most. And then I thought I was going to minor in math, and actually halfway through college, took a poetry class by accident. I was so scared. I didn't at all think that was going to be a place that I was going to stay, but I ended up loving it. I minored in English. I wrote a thesis in English, and those 2 fields, which a lot of times when people hear neuroscience and English, they think it's like opposite, but to me, there was a lot of overlap. So I think it can be a lot of things, but for me, it was leaning into what was already familiar and then being open for something new, and like not being scared to put my interests together, even though people around me were confused by it. It felt right for me. And then you will end up finding mentors who are where you are and are doing what you want to do. Yeah.
Jasmine, what about you?
Sure. So I kind of knew I wanted to study psychology from high school just because I was really passionate about mental health and I wanted to eventually become a therapist. So I kind of knew going into college that that was the track I wanted to take. But I did discover like I could minor in writing, and music was kind of something I picked at the last second, just because I've always loved those two just like subjects and being able to express myself creatively. But I just decided like kind of at the last second, you know, I'm going to pursue a minor in this. So I feel like my majors and my minors don't exactly like mesh together, but they're all things I'm interested in studying and pursuing. So that's something that I decided to do when I came to school.
I think that's really one of the lovely things about the college is our students typically take about, depends, 4 or 5 courses a semester. And, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of those might be in sort of the field or fields, especially if they're getting started, right? Where they're like, maybe I want to go ahead and major in this field. I'm curious about it. I have, as Ria was saying, I really enjoyed it in high school. And then there's like that random course, right? That you just sort of take because it sounds cool, or because your roommate says that she wants to take it and you think it would be fun to take a class together, and there's space for that in your schedules, and you just sort of never know what might go ahead and blossom out of that. I wonder, Tina, did you maybe have a similar experience or something totally different?
Yeah, so coming into college, I was a bit undecided, but I knew what I did not want to major in. So basically, I, after taking AP classes that were STEM, AP biology, AP chemistry, I knew I did not want to become a doctor or be pre-med because those classes were very difficult for me. But I definitely wanted to learn more about health. So I realized that I'm a very people person. So I love learning about the social aspects of health. And I found out that global health was a major that WashU offered. So I took a few classes there and I just became in love with it. And so I think it's really interesting, especially that we are in a pandemic, that I've been able to receive 5 credits and take 2 courses about the pandemic. So I'm living and learning everything that is surrounding me.
Very cool. What about you, Stephen?
So I don't have, a super fun story about how I chose my major or anything. Whenever I see this question, I'm like, oh, to be totally honest with you all. But so I continued, I would say, with my major that was working for me, that I thought I would come in with from high school, to be totally honest with you. But something that I would highlight on this question is that I think the arts and sciences curriculum allowed me to actually pursue a lot of other interests outside of my major that I didn't even know I had before coming here. So 2 of those are education studies and Holocaust studies. I've taken 2 to 4 classes in each of those areas in my time and never felt a crunch on my major requirements or anything. I continued my interest in Spanish from high school that I was really only able to do because of the way our core curriculum is set up. So something that I'll just plug is don't be afraid. And other people have said things like this, but to really explore things as they come. Because who knows, if you're a little bit smarter than me, maybe they'll turn into a major.
Well, now so you mentioned Holocaust studies. You participated your first year in one of our ampersand programs. Is that correct? In Holocaust studies?
I did. And
how did that come up? How did that come about? And tell us about it.
Yeah, so I guess the program is called History and Memory of the Holocaust, or maybe History, Memory, and Representation. Dean Romney can get me on that one. I so recommend that everyone participate in a first-year program if it is possible and available to you. It was hands down probably my favorite experience at WashU. So essentially we had 2 courses, one each semester. It was the same group of about 18 of us students. Both courses were taught in kind of a small seminar setting by really awesome faculty. Dr. Annika Valka, who's a history professor, taught the first part. And then Dr. Erin McLaughlin, who's actually now your undergraduate dean in arts and sciences, is like still a really close mentor and friend of mine from that experience. And then both professors took us to Germany, Poland, and Lithuania in May on a study trip. So not only did we really dive pretty deeply into the Holocaust and how it is remembered through literature and film and other popular representations, but we're all kind of lifelong friends now, I would like to say, including the professors and the graduate student who came with us. So would definitely recommend. I was actually really excited to talk about that today.
Okay. Does anybody else have like a course that surprised them that, you know, you sort of signed up for it and thought, this sounds like it could be really pretty cool, and then it turned out to be something totally different in a really amazing way, or sort of amplified your way of thinking about a particular subject in a way that's really noteworthy?
I can go. I took this course, I think it was a newer course taught by Dr. Lai called Prejudice, Stereotyping, and Discrimination. And I kind of knew it was going to be about going into it, but the way that it was taught and the subject matter was just completely interesting to me. Like all the topics that we addressed, I had never considered before. Like talking about the different types of racism, talking about situations when stereotyping is more likely than other situations. This was really eye-opening, especially like just talking about racial relations in general is really important. And I really learned a lot from that class and I really liked it. I would definitely recommend taking it.
So he's a social psychologist, right? Yeah, and so studies the psychology of societies, I guess, group societies, so, or group psychology, which is cool. Now, Ria, you are a neurobiologist. You're there in your scrubs. You're working in a physician's office, but I think you mentioned that you did your thesis not in neuroscience or not in a STEM field. You did it in the English department. How did you get involved in doing research in that field?
Yeah, this is something I'm so excited to talk about. So thank you for asking. That is a really exciting thing about WashU. Like, truly, I am so grateful to WashU for this opportunity, for listening to me ask for something. I was a junior. I just finished junior year, and I was kind of interested in a thesis, and I just taken a few English classes, you know, and to write a thesis, you normally have to be a major. So I did whatever I could think of. I emailed my minor advisor. He reached out to someone. I talked to them. So it was just this little like communication network that was built slowly that really just started with me saying, I want to do this. And I didn't even have to have a lot of experience in it. I just had the passion for it, the commitment to do it. And it was difficult. It did take a couple of weeks. I had to write a proposal, that sort of stuff. I had to find like my own advisor. But my thesis was on the patient-physician relationship, but it was entirely based on poetry. It was just basically a very intense 90-page close reading of a couple of poems of my favorite poet, Adrienne Rich, poet who I had found in my art of poetry class, the one that I mentioned earlier that I loved sophomore year. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and often in theses or those big projects, you work really closely. You have like a cohort, other peers, and you're doing like a peer review process. So a lot of them were majors and they were going to pursue PhDs in English, like that was their path, versus that's not my path, clearly. But everything is an informative experience if it interests you, and that influences the way that I talk to patients every day. And it was just fun. And it was research. I learned how to read, how to do meta-analyses, how to interview, and that's going to apply to like every field. So you really can voice your interest, even if you don't have some huge resume to back you up. Sometimes the answer is no. That's happened to me in other endeavors too, and that's okay. You still form relationships and connections. But yeah, I ended up doing that my senior year, but I would say from the very beginning, opportunities like that were open.
And I'm just curious, did you work with Professor Pollock, or I wonder if you worked with Professor Van Engen, who works on sympathy, but with an early Puritan New England writers?
Yeah, actually neither of those, and that just goes to show how many like professors there are that like there's just so many professors that know so much and their interests overlap. My like honors thesis advisor was Professor Batten, and then I worked closely with Dr. Finneran, who honestly I would say now is just my friend, like the way Stephen has his friends. Like professors really turn into your friends. So I just asked her if she could please help me, and she didn't even have a lot of knowledge in my research area, but it was amazing to see how much time she put in, not only to mentor me and to read over my work, but to herself, like spend her own free time becoming more familiar with my subject material to help me. So you'll really have people in college, especially at WashU, just vouch for you as a person. So that's special.
I've always said that this place, I think of it as being the best of both worlds. We have the resources and the opportunities of sort of a larger research institution, but the heart really of a little liberal arts college, where again, we really strive to know our students by name and story, and to listen to them and to support them in their academic endeavors, definitely. So Tina, are you thinking about doing research, or have you given some thought to that?
I have not participated in research, but after taking um, psychology courses, I have been participants in these research. What's cool about these courses in the psychology department is that for some of them, they require about like 6 hours of being a participant in research. And so it's kind of interesting and cool being on that other side instead of conducting it. But I'm like adding like results to these studies.
Mhm. And I think I've had a number of students who have done that, who have sort of participated to be, helpful in the data, right? Because we are a research institution and our faculty are teaching us and mentoring us, but they're also working on their research as well. So first of all, to participate in that and sort of get an idea of, even from the participant side, of what it actually entails, what you're saying, providing data, and then that data analysis. But then, if you become really interested and want to learn more about that professor's research lab and the kind of work that they're doing, and then ultimately join the lab. I've had a number of students who have gone into it, as I said, as sort of like an element of a class they were taking, and ended up doing independent studies that were the basis for their honors theses. So I wonder, we have a question in the Q&A to go sort of from the thesis end to the beginning and the transition. How is your transcript? How is your transition from high school to college? And did anything surprise you when you became a student? Especially those of you who have graduated, you're like, 4 years ago.
I can just answer a short thought that I had, which I sort of mentioned earlier, but something that surprised me is how much the professors care about your personal life and how much they invite you to bring that into discussions or times that you possibly need an extension, something like that. They really do care to hear about that. Another thing is how much your peers, friends will actually end up being your teachers, even academically. They're going to be the ones that sometimes recommend books or classes, things like that, that have been huge for me.
I
Yeah.
think for me, so I haven't graduated unlike everyone else. So college was more recent. I think something that surprised me was that how much control you have over your time. So during high school, obviously you went to school like 5 days a week for about like 8 to 9 hours, and then after school you did extracurricular activities, maybe got a part-time job. But during college, you get to build your own schedule and you get to pick what you want to be involved in, whether that be research, a part-time job, or like work study, or any extracurricular activities. And also you get to put in what you get out of. So that includes like talking to professors, talking to TAs, talking to your peers. So I really like that I have much more control over my time, and it's really flexible.
I think that just having come off of having one-on-one conversations with all of my incoming students, I think that is something that they really do think about a lot, right? This idea of, time management and sort of inverse, right? Before you used to spend, as Tina was saying, or you are spending, 8 or 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? And in college, you have more like 15 hours total in a week of sort of contact, what we call contact time or instructional time. And then there's a lot of hours then after that you need to, yes, structure, that you get to structure, right? And so I think, and different people have different strategies for sort of managing that additional time and how they're going to sort of compartmentalize it a little bit, right? Into, this is my work study, this is my research, this is my co-curricular work. This is the time when I just want to hang out and chill, right? And then also, these are the times when I'm Ria, going to write my 90-page thesis on poetry and empathy. So excellent. Does that sound, did other people have similar experiences, or how was the transition, I guess, is really what I'm thinking of.
So I guess something I wish I knew when I was transitioning was just to slow down a little bit, take a deep breath. Some perspective that I've had and been saying a lot actually since graduating is that I think that, you know, everyone puts so much on the transition from high school to college in terms of just, you know, talking you up about the big transition that you're going through. And then you kind of get to college and you participate in orientation for like a week, and that feels a little summer campy. So, you know, people have probably done similar things before. And then you start your classes, which, you know, professors that know they have freshmen, first year students know that they have first year students. And so that probably feels pretty similar, and you do have a lot more time to manage. But then there's this transition when you graduate where no one tells you what to do. And it is a lot more scary and stressful, in my opinion, than the one when you're coming in. So I would just say, take a deep breath, enjoy your convocation, enjoy orientation, focus on making friends. Don't worry about your senior honors thesis yet, and what exactly you're going to be doing after school, because it is a time where there are probably more people looking out for you as you come into Washington University than there will ever be again in any point in your entire life. So stop and smell the roses.
And would that be, Stephen, your biggest advice for somebody who is thinking about schools, is to not stress about it?
Pretty much, and take a first year program.
And take a first year program. Excellent, excellent. Anybody, I think about 60 or 70% of our students do take first year programs. And we have ones like Stephen participated in that are called ampersand programs, since the ampersand is the emblem of arts and sciences, right? We're interested in bringing together disparate views and seeing how they resonate. So ampersand programs are just that, right? 2 courses or sometimes more, right? That are typically stretched out over a year and often involve travel. Hopefully we're going to be traveling again. But we also have a lot of 1 semester seminars for students who are interested in exploring a topic, but maybe not quite committed to an entire year. So some of my favorites this year, and again, I'm a little biased, but one of my favorites is called The Literary Life, which is sort of a hybrid of literary criticism, but also creative writing as well. So you're reading poets and then writing poetry, and you're reading short fiction and then writing short fiction. I think that's really wonderful. Another one is called Habitable Planets, and you guys can, you know, again, I'm not in STEM, but I'm really interested in geology and the whole idea of habitable planets. I do read a lot of science fiction. I will admit that, and love it, and I'm proud of it. So I think that would be a really cool course as well. And there are students who take that who are interested in, you know, becoming what we call Earth and Planetary Sciences majors. And there are others who may be more like me, or just sort of, you know, just sort of find it very interesting and sort of read about it almost as a hobby. And another one that's not running this year, but I'm hopeful that it will come back. I was reminded of it by Valencia's introduction. Just across the river from WashU is a place called Cahokia, Illinois, and that is an ancient settlement of indigenous peoples. And it was like 25,000 people or something. It was a very significant settlement, and they were mound builders. And so we have people in our anthropology department who are archaeologists who work on this site and teach courses where the students can actually go and be in that actual site, right? Work on that actual dig and participate in it. I think that's pretty cool. So I always encourage my advisees to think very, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. It's their curriculum, it's their education and their educational choices. But I do always encourage my students to really think about about taking one of those unique opportunities in their first year. So that's sort of the way that I sort of approach advising at the beginning. But I'm wondering, in the four-year advising system, I think is really a centerpiece of the arts and sciences undergraduate experience. And so, as an advisor, I know how I approach it, but I'm wondering, as advisees, if you guys might want to talk a little bit about what your advising experience was like, about that process, and sort of like what kind of guidance you sought or received from your advisors, not only at the beginning, right, but also throughout the 4 years.
I can go. So I had a great advisor. Her name was Dean Ganapathy. She was amazing. She was very helpful for me, especially because I started college pre-med, and she gave me like all the resources and a pre-health advisor. But then when I changed my mind, I said, never mind, I don't want to be pre-med anymore. She was also very understanding and said, okay, what do you want to do? And basically helped me plan all my course schedules every semester. She was also just like a great person to talk to. She was very kind and caring and compassionate. And even when I said to her, like my senior year, I want to get a writing minor last minute, she's like, okay, like, do you know who to contact? Let me know if you need any help. And she's just like a great person. I really enjoyed being advised by her. And yeah, it was a great experience for me.
Stephen, I know that when people are in ampersand programs, they often share an advisor as well. Was that your experience?
Yeah, so in my experience, they do cluster people who are in a specific ampersand program, maybe to a few advisors. My four-year advisor actually left the university after my first year. So I kindly asked Dean Smith at the time if your now Dean McLaughlin could become my new advisor. And she let us do that. So that there's another data point. My ampersand professor became my four-year advisor. Something that I'll say, just because I'm seeing a lot of questions too that are along the lines of, oh, what if my interests change, or what if my advisor's field and my interests don't align a lot anymore? Just know that you'll get a four-year advisor. Any and every major you declare, you actually get assigned another advisor for that, and the same goes for your minor. It's very common in my experience for people to kind of gravitate to one advisor or the other after they start accumulating those different advisors. And I think that's something all of your advisors are really prepared for and is totally okay. So just know that I think the important thing is, at the end of the day, it's very likely that your interests will be covered and your needs will be met by somebody, even if it's not the picture perfect four-year advisor way that you've been told it's supposed to be done to this point.
Tina or Rhea, do you want to add about your four-year advising experience, or something that people might want to be keen to know?
I don't have any advice that's too helpful, but I will just say with the arts and sciences program, there are sort of like requirements that you might have to take or fulfill by the end, and sort of along the lines of what Stephen was saying, don't worry about that right now. Like don't start like mapping out like how you're going to complete all of them. Your advisors are super helpful in reminding you, helping you plan even semesters before how to accomplish those things. So don't worry too much about that. But even separate from that, when you're making your schedule, I think it's fun to just have those variety of classes, but don't take them with the intention of fulfilling those requirements. Like just take them because they're interesting to you. The names sound interesting. A lot of their requirements will just automatically be met by doing that.
No, I think that's right, and it's ironic to me that I happen to be the certification officer for the college, so I'm the person at the end of the day who says, yes, Stephen, Jasmine, and Rhea, you have, and Tina, eventually, right here in another couple of years, you have earned your degree. You've met all the requirements. But I say that myself, that it's my job as a four-year advisor, in some ways, to let a student know if it's time to worry about pursuing their requirements, and that, like Rhea said, that they normally just sort of come along, right, as you're taking courses that are interesting to you. And it's my job to sort of keep an eye on the back end and be, maybe point out an area that maybe has been neglected a little bit and just sort of, maybe suggest to a student that they might prioritize that kind of course in their next semester or maybe in the next year. Here's a question. How would you describe the atmosphere at WashU? Is it more competitive or more collaborative?
I would love to answer this question because it's the very reason that I chose to go to WashU. It is so collaborative. There's of course a healthy amount of competition that motivates you. It's fun if you want to sort of put yourself in that position, but for the most part, it is so collaborative. So many of the classes have group work, group discussions. And I say that being in a stereotypically like competitive sort of, I was neuroscience, I was pre-med, so I took a lot of the classes that you would expect to be competitive, but really like your friends, your peers, your orgo lab partner, like if you're sick, they're so gonna send you the notes. They'll help you study. You study together if you want. If you're an individual studier, that's also okay. But overall, it's just so supportive, and you're probably not going to get A's in every single class. I mean, you might, that's cool, but you probably won't. And there's so much support over improvement, so many resources for you, but also just comfort by your professors, by your peers, in times that you don't do as well. Like that's okay. And that's really something that we experience as a group, at least in my experience.
I think this is one of those interesting questions because at least from my perspective, and again, as an advisor and as a dean, so I realize that that's not the same thing as a student perspective. But the collaborative nature, I think, is something that we work at and sort of fostering. And so I think sometimes students don't really know how to answer this question because it's been like competitive. We're not a competitive, we do try to help each other with notes. There is a very robust what we call PLTL, which stands for peer-led team learning. It is a very robust system that gets students together formally for credit in small groups as sort of optional, but encourage sort of add-ons to courses that they might be taking, typically larger STEM courses. And the students get together usually on the weekend for a couple of hours in the afternoon with their 4 or 5 students who are currently enrolled in the class, with a peer leader who has very successfully already completed the class to sort of work with them on sort of guided learning, right, and guided inquiry so that students have more additional mentored opportunities to really sort of learn how to extrapolate from the concepts that they've been learning in classes. And this PLTL started in chemistry, oh gosh, I don't even know, 10 or 12 years ago. And being scientists, of course, they tracked the data and they tracked the outcome and found out just really how helpful they were for students. And so since then, that program, PLTL, has been adopted for math courses. It's also been adopted for physics courses. And so it's just, I think having those PLTL experiences early on in your educational career, right? Even if you yourself are not doing one, your roommates will be, right? And so I think that it just really sets the tone for a more sort of collaborative kind of effort, or at least that's what my students report back to me. I do want to jump to a question that I saw. What is a typical day? What did your typical day look like, or does it look like, Tina? Maybe we'll start with you, Tina. Sort of like what is a typical day? What is a typical week? And I do want to say that probably differs, or observe that probably differs whether or not we're in midterms or not. So, Tina, tell us, what does your week look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes along with what I said, that you have a lot of control over the time. So that means like planning your schedule how you want it to be. So I am not a morning person. So my first class started about like 10 or 11. And then after that, I would go to lunch and then take take just a break there. And then after lunch, I would finish off with my 2 classes there. And then if I had time, I would have either go back to my dorm to take a nap, or I could go work out. It just depend on my mood. And then afterwards, I was involved in a various amount of clubs that had some time commitments. So for example, I was a part of WashU's Children's Project. So maybe like every Tuesday, I would go to the Ronald McDonald House and volunteer there for a few hours. I also worked a part-time job, a work study, where I was a mentor to the NEB Stars, which is a cohort for low first generation and low socioeconomic students. So I was a mentor to about 5 mentees, and I met with them every single week. So it was like one-on-one individual meeting for about an hour, that I was able to get to know them, get to hang out with them, and maybe sometimes in person. So yeah, and then I'd say like after dinner, I would just do work. That would be either working with friends, maybe in the dining hall, or maybe just studying in my room. And then I just go to bed. So that's how my day would be. Again, that's just my day, and I'm pretty sure it was much different from Jasmine Stevens and Ria's.
Was it Jasmine, Stephen, and Ria? Jasmine, go.
Okay, I was a little similar to Tina just because I also did work study at the rec center. So my day was pretty much the same. I had most of my classes like between 9 and 12, and then I would get lunch, and then I might go to the rec center for work study, or I might just do some homework. And then I also did a cappella. So during my evenings, like after I get dinner, I might have a cappella rehearsal for a couple hours, and then I'd come back and I'd either work on homework or go to bed. But yeah, I also was a teaching assistant for a semester. So like that semester was a little bit different. But I would I would have teaching assistant hours. And I'd also like have to like attend lectures. So it just depended on the semester really, but those were like the things I did outside of class.
What about you, Stephen?
I'd say my typical day, well, in a non all virtual sitting in front of the Zoom screen year, I'd probably wake up, hit snooze, wake up again, watch some TikTok, probably snooze one more time. No, just kidding. So I was pretty involved with Student Union, which is our like undergraduate student government, for a lot of my time at WashU. So after like the third or fourth snooze, when I would actually wake up, I would bolt to the Duck, which is the Danforth University Center, get some coffee, drink it as fast as I possibly can, and then start my day that was always pretty much just a mix between classes and like student union related meetings. So helping student groups do whatever they're doing, working on student advocacy initiatives and different things that student groups want to work on. Really a whole range of things, working with people like Dean Romney and student affairs people. So I basically do that. And then I would say I always personally tried, this is just an example of how you can kind of build your own schedule and your own habits. It's really just totally based on you. I would try for a later dinner so that then after dinner, I wouldn't really be doing work if I could help it. That was always a really important thing to me, to kind of wind down, absolutely destroy at least one of my roommates in Mario Kart, and do other relaxing things of that nature at night so that I could kind of get a good night's sleep and start the mad dash to the Duck all over again the next day.
A good night's sleep, tapering off with multiple snoozes. Yeah. What about you, Ria? What was your typical day like at WashU?
I'm kind of going to kind of go around the question because I really didn't have a typical day. I really was someone who woke up and was like, what is today going to be like? And that just worked for me, especially given that different semesters can have a lot of different commitments, and I was just flexible in that. But some things I'll add to what's been said is I was someone who liked to do my homework on the weekends and just have like, not necessarily a chill week, but just like to focus on my classes, focus on seeing my friends. That was more of like my week. So you can kind of play around and decide how you want to manage your time that way. I also love St. Louis and just love going off campus. There's the Lone Elk Park. I highly recommend that. The Botanical Gardens, Forest Park. So that was always a big part of every week, no matter like what season or what my schedule was. And then one semester I took a 10-hour class on Wednesdays. It went from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So there were things like that that would just sort of take up the whole day. I was also in a club called Wilderness Project, and we would go camping on the weekends a lot, so I'd be gone for that. So my attitude towards it was, I know what my priorities are, I know what I want to get done, and sort of whatever, depending on what mood I was feeling and how much I had to get done, I would go study, I would go to class. So I just had a mix, really.
So just launching off of that, we have, okay, Wilderness Project, Acapella, Student Union, Ronald McDonald House. Those are sort of your significant co-curricular activities. I'm always really struck by the sort of the diversity of co-curricular activities that people get involved in. I work with students who are pre-veterinary students, and so they have the Pre-Vet and Zoological Society Club that does animal type things, right? And a lot of them are doing research either here on the Danforth campus or over actually in conjunction with the St. Louis Zoo, which is part of Forest Park. It's just our backyard, as Ria just mentioned, which is really amazing to be able to work mostly endocrinology research actually at the zoo. And then I also work really closely. I always ask when for your advisor assignments are being made, can I please have the dancers? I'm devoted to the dance department and I'm a former dancer myself. And so a lot of my students are themselves dancers, and that is something that is a significant both curricular and co-curricular part of their college experiences. Is there anything either that you guys did yourself, y'all did yourself co-curricularly, or just something that sees sort of, you know, maybe a roommate did, or just to give it sort of more understanding of the breadth of co-curricular engagement at WashU? I was thinking, Jasmine, how which a cappella group were you in? Because we have a pretty healthily competitive a cappella environment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. There's 12 official groups on campus. So, and there's like a couple unofficial groups too. And I was in More Fools Than Wise, and we sang chamber jazz and folk music.
You know Lydia then, Lydia M.
Oh yeah, I love Lydia. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's fine. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, all the a cappella groups like to sing different music, and we love supporting each other. So I mean, it's not like I don't know, it's not like a fraternity or like Greek life, but it's like, you know, we all have bonding and we all have activities that we're a part of, and it's really cool. So I love it.
Was anybody in, because we do have Greek life at WashU, both fraternities and sororities, and we also have, you know, academic fraternities and sororities. And I'm thinking, Tina, I think there's a global health kind of club that's has Greek letters, which are escaping me right now, but is more of a social fraternity. I'm sorry, it's not a social fraternity. It's more of a philanthropic fraternity. So I don't know if anybody participated in Greek life. We had some questions about that. So I'm just trying to figure that out.
Dean Romney, I was in a fraternity, and then I do have like some friends who were in some pre-professional fraternities. I'm not sure if anyone else was.
I was in a sorority I until my senior year. Should I share a little bit about that experience? Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think WashU does a great job making sure that you're not allowed to rush sororities or fraternities, at least the social ones, until the spring semester. I don't think it's something you need to think too hard about right now. Like, just focus on getting to school, making friends. Like, that's more a decision that'll come in a few months, I think. But it's helpful to talk to older students there like you are now, but also once you're on campus to see what their experience has been. I will say it's shifted a lot in the past few years, sort of attitudes and involvement towards Greek life. I had mostly a very positive experience. I loved it. And it's really something that you can choose your commitment to. Like, if you want to be president of it, you can do that. It's kind of like having a full-time job, but all the presidents I knew absolutely loved it. So you can do that. Or you can go to events every now and then. My big and my grand big live in New York City.
What's big? What's a big and a grand big?
Oh, sorry. That's a good point. When you join a sorority or fraternity, I think even for social ones, for academic ones, like sort of all of them, you would get like, actually even some like student groups have them, like dance teams and stuff. You might get like a big, which is after going through like a socialization period where you just sort of hang out with kids in the grade above you. You sort of get paired in a way that you can give input into that process. But you would get paired with someone in the year above you or 2 years above you. They would be called your big. Then whoever their big is called your grand big. And they're just sort of friends for the most part, but also can serve as just mentors and guiding you through the processes of social events, classes to take. They're just like friends on campus that you have this extra special connection with. And that ended up being my favorite part of my sorority. As I was about to say, my big and grand big live in the city with me, and I'm going to go see them later tonight. So yeah, it's a really fun way to meet people that you might not otherwise. Like my big, for example, was in art school. I didn't have many other friends there until I met her. So yeah, it's fun, and you can totally customize your commitment to it. You can leave at any time. I do recommend it, but I first recommend just enjoying where you are and not worrying too much about it.
Yes, and just to reiterate, the rush and pledging happens in the spring semester, so not in the fall semester. So you do have time to sort of acclimate to the arts and sciences and WashU culture to begin with, right? And then go ahead and pursue Greek life if that is something that interests you. So I think we have two more sort of, maybe even three. I almost feel like we're already nearing the end of our time, and I feel like we have like a lightning round coming up or something. These are the three questions that I would be keen to hear about. What is the most interesting class you've taken at WashU? And Stephen, I just want to know if it was the free speech on campus course, but that you took. But what was the most interesting class you've taken? And Ria, was that Neurophys Lab? That was a 12-hour class? Did you say you were there 24 hours? It was something substantial, 8 or 10 hours. It's a big one. I think the other thing is, what's your favorite WashU tradition? And then finally, and we've all touched on this in some ways, and maybe we should have this as our ending. What makes WashU special? Like, why did you choose WashU? And so you can, it's our lightning round, favorite class or most interesting class, favorite tradition, and then like, what drew you? What was the magnet for WashU for you? So everybody taking notes, writing down the questions. Who's ready to go first? Stephen was nodding at me. Therefore,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm not the best person to start off a lightning round, but favorite class, ampersand class that I've been, selling this whole time. Also, the American School, great class. Tradition, like, I guess I'll say wild. Everyone always says wild. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. What's that?
Tell our attendees what wild is.
Sure. So it stands for walk in, lay down. You don't lay down anymore, but it is a really big concert put on by the Social Programming Board, which is a student group that you can join. And they've brought people like Jason Derulo, Lizzo opened a couple of years ago. They actually have a really, good like knack for bringing people like just before they're like super huge globally. So it's a really cool thing. It's kind of like where my mind just like automatically goes when someone asks about a WashU tradition. So I'm like having trouble hardwiring it away from that. So super fun, great tradition. What makes WashU special? I would say, something that really, I think we take for granted a lot, but something that really binds everyone at WashU together is that if you're on this call or at WashU or have graduated, that means that somebody in the admissions office saw something in you that you would be an engaged person in the WashU community. I think that's something that we don't talk about a lot because it's something that is common between everyone because it's something that they look for, your potential to be engaged here. But it really is a pretty special place to see all the different things that people care about and how all those things actually center around our community and the values that we hold and the things and that we support and the things that we speak up about. Really, really special place in that way. So just how much everyone, I think, cares about each other in our community.
Jasmine, will you go next?
Sure. My favorite class was the Introduction to Social Psychology, just because that's the first class I had with Dr. Calvin Lai, and it just really solidified my interest in psych. And also I got to be a TA for him and also work in his lab, so that was really awesome to have that introduction. Also, I'm sorry, my favorite tradition has been convocation. I also like wild, but convocation was really special to me just because I just like had never had an experience
What
like
is
that.
convocation? What is
Oh, right.
convocation?
So it's basically the ceremony introducing first year students to the university. So it's really fun. You get to go with your residential college and wear your residential t-shirt, residential college t-shirt, and you get to like have these cheers and you just yell them on your way to I think it's held in the athletic center. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it was really cool. And that was one of my favorite memories when I came to WashU. And I'm sorry, I'm like blanking on the other questions.
What drew you to WashU? What was special
Right.
about it? Why? What was the magnet for you?
So I hadn't visited before I got accepted, and I selected WashU as my place of admission. So when I came for the first year student program, it was my first introduction. I absolutely loved it. I met so many great people, and I was really happy with my choice. And it was just a really fun program, and just like having that opportunity to like see WashU before I attended in the fall was really nice. So I guess I picked it kind of out of a hat, but it was a really great pick, and I'm really happy with my choice. So yeah.
And yeah, and you have the beautiful WashU campus behind
Yeah,
you.
it's
Great
beautiful.
spring picture. Absolutely. So, Ria, you're next.
Okay, so my favorite class was Designing a Meaningful Life.
Hmm.
I got to learn how to design a meaningful life, and we talked about things like what makes life meaningful, what events can be meaningful for you. It was just a really special community, and the fact that WashU designed a whole course and gave so much attention to what's going to happen to us after college was really special. My favorite traditions, I don't know if this is considered a tradition, but every year we do have events like Diwali and Black Anthology, which take place in Edison Theater, this like beautiful big theater. And it's just so special. I'm sure some of you will be actually involved in putting on those events, but others of you will just buy tickets and go watch. And it's just really special to see like celebrations of cultures that you're either a part of or you want to learn more about. And they're beautiful. There's dances, there's education. It's just awesome. And then why I chose WashU, what drew me there, I talked about it earlier. I just think the student body is incredibly collaborative academically, and that really translates into your friendships and how much everyone cares about each other. I found the students so humble, so willing to share what they're interested about. And then I also think the campus is just beautiful, and that might not be a big factor for you right now. Like you're thinking about more important things, but that changed every day for me, just to wake up, to go outside. You are gonna absolutely love Mudfield, the new East End campus. Is just a beautiful place to be, and that really made a difference for my mood every single day.
And then Tina, last but not least.
Hey, so my favorite class of all time is a first year seminar called Creating and Imagining Africa Youth Cultural and Change by Professor Jallo. Absolutely favorite teacher ever. And I really like that class because lots of high school classes were a little bit Eurocentric and like lots of Western topics. So being able to take that class, I was able to unlearn some things that I've learned throughout my life. So it really opened my mind onto a lot of different things. And even like made me like for sure set that I wanted to do global health. And my favorite WashU tradition has to be moonlight breakfast because I love breakfast foods. And so having that ability to eat it at midnight or like 3 a.m. is like amazing, and it's like free too. And especially WashU holds it when it's around like midterms or final season. So like when you're super stressed over a paper and you just need food, like waffles is the way to go. So that is absolutely my favorite tradition. Why WashU? So I come from a low economic background, and I was first generation. So this whole college process to me was very stressful and very intimidating. So I applied early decision to WashU because I heard great things, word of mouth, and also a session that that WashU came to Memphis where I attended. And so once I got in, I WashU flew me over, and then I was able to see campus, but that was my first time able to see it. So I felt like I had to force myself to like campus regardless of how I felt. But like just like coming into campus and like just being on WashU ground, like that was not hard at all to fall in love with the campus. And I could see myself taking the classes, talking to the professors, joining these clubs, eating these dining halls. And I felt the sense that WashU wanted to support me, not only in my 4 years at this university, but also after graduation. So it was really reassuring that I made this great decision to come to WashU.
And I think Valencia, we ran over a little bit, but I'm sorry, we had lots of things to say. So thank you all for sharing your experiences with us. And I'll turn it back to you, Valencia.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone as well for hanging on just a few minutes. We certainly appreciate the additional time, but we certainly hope that this has been a wonderful conversation for you all. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I hope you all have enjoyed it thoroughly. Many thanks to Dean Romney and all of our current students and alumni for joining us and sharing your stories so that we had an opportunity to get to know you all. Thank you to every single person who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed the session and will continue to engage with us throughout the summer. I've dropped a registration link for our other theme weeks, so feel free to join us throughout the summer as you are able to do so to explore more academic areas of WashU. And of course, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any additional questions that you may have. I know this is a great conversation, but we weren't able to get to every single question. So do not fret. There are more opportunities for us to connect. So we look forward to having the opportunity to do so. So again, many thanks to everyone for joining and have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.